Hi guys, this is Guido from SETI project and this is episode 4 of the SETI vlog. This time I wanted to talk to you about classification of Goa and Psytrance music, because this is something that was like running around in my brain for a long time now. As maybe some of you might know, I have been making music between 1998 and 1923, and in the meantime a lot has happened, and in the 90s was easy. I could say, I make Goa Trance. But then sometime in the meantime, this term Psy Trance has emerged, and some people perceive it to be something considerately different to Goa Trance, and I was wondering why. So I tried to wrap my mind around whether there is a difference or how the difference would be. And also I wanted to merge this all into one scheme, so that you could be able to classify all the modern or all the classic styles of Goa Trance and Psytrance consistently. And let's begin with talking about what properties we would expect a consistent classification scheme to have. I wrote them down here. In fact, it's a PowerPoint presentation of 4 slides, and I'm going to create a download link for it, and I'm gonna drop it in the video description on YouTube or in the comments on Facebook, where I'm going to post this video, so that you could download this slides and for your own use or whatever. Okay, so what properties would we expect of a consistent classification scheme? I would expect that there is a unique top super category for all subcategory describing all the entire trance or psychedelic trance styles. Like for instance, Goa Trance as a super category, and then we divide this into more subcategories. So by differences in style, that makes the music styles distinguishable. And now, of course, each category can only appear one time in the scheme. That's quite naturally. Each category can only be a subcategory of one supercategory. This is like a consistent tree, what I want to create. And also what's very important is there exists no conflict between the definitions of the categories and their monikers. So what I wanted to say is, like, if you define a certain category a certain way and you assign a certain moniker, the moniker should fit. Like Goa Trance should describe like music that emerged from Goa, for instance, and Psytrance should describe music that's psychedelic and trance at the same time. So, and then you have got like definitions of the groups that are consistent with the monikers. And this all needs to be consistent within the scheme. So having said this, we're going to move on to the next slide. Here we go. I wanted to give first a broad definition of Goa/Psytrance, because I still don't know what the difference is. I'm was out of the business for 25 years, and now I'm getting into it, and I sort of think like people use those definitions without really having thought about what a total scheme would look like, where you would have all these different styles lined up next to each others, that also pays justice to like their relations amongst each other, and the relation to like the primordial soup Goa Trance from the end of the early 90s. So I wrapped my mind around what I think the music basically is. It's electronic dance music, emerged from the hippie scene in the early 1990s in Goa, India, and maybe a little bit earlier, based upon the common trance music. Its main characteristics are a 4-on-the-floor beat with a BPM range from approximately 135 to 160. And in contrast to the common trance, it contains psychedelic noises and stuff like this, effects and sounds that are modulated across time, and has a more excessive use of effects like delay, phaser, flange and distortion. Its synth sounds use a wider range of possibilities than regular trance and are a bit more freaky. What I would like to add here, maybe I do it. Most famous is the incorporation of the Roland TB303 into its soundscape. To increase the psychedelic impact of the music, the TB303 gets from time to time distorted and processed through effects like phases and flanges. Mostly Goa Trance tracks do possess less of a closed form composition. This means classical arrangements where you have a lot of recurring melodies and parts are dissolved or at least diluted. In contrast to regular trance that is composed predominantly in the Aeolian mode, Goa Trance is composed predominantly in the Phrygian mode, and some tracks are even composed in Aeolian and Dorian mode. Sometimes Arabic scales and Casimir scales are used. And all these differences lead to the psychedelic impact of the music, I think, because like the music is tweaked at the right spots, like the scale where it's been composed in, and also the sounds that you use, that they are more freaky. You have more single FX and more delay and reverb in your mixes. This makes the music psychedelic, and also like the non-use of a closed form composition. This also melts like the boundaries in the music. So another alternative to this definition, because this definition is meant as a broad definition of Goa and Psytrance, perceiving both as the same thing, as a synonym, which I think maybe people would not agree with me about. But there's also an alternative, and there you would define Psytrance as a subset of modern Goa Trance that is more noise and FX driven. That's what you can do. The problem is that you get into like a contradiction, because Psytrance means it's psychedelic trance music, but wouldn't you say that Goa Trance isn't psychedelic trance music? No, it is. And that's what I meant in the beginning with like a contradiction between like the moniker of class and its description. Yeah, because you would label Psytrance as psychedelic trance, but Goa Trance is psychedelic trance as well. So you can't do this, because then you would like contradict like the Goa definition of Goa Trance, and you would say that Goa Trance isn't psychedelic, but it is. Definitely it is. And what would it be if it wasn't psychedelic? And and having said that, you could also see that you couldn't also say like Psytrance isn't Goa Trance, because like it also emerges from like the early Goa music from the 1990s, the earliest, because that's like these are the roots. So I think everything that emerged from Goa is also Psytrance and belongs into this broad category Goa Trance or Psytrance. For me, they are the same for the mentioned reason. So I will now continue to the next slide. So, and here I defined all those kind of subgenres that exist beyond like the broad Goa Psytrance. From my point of view, this is one classic or retro Goa. This is Goa Trance with the same style elements and sound aesthetic as the original Goa Trance from the 90s. That's like an artist like Mindfield is today, but it produced nowadays, because that's what I call retro. It's producing music today as like it was used to produce in the beginning in the early 90s, with certain style elements and sound aesthetics. So, and then full on is for me is like the Goa Trance with new invented style elements and new sound aesthetics compared to the original Goa Trance from the 90s. I'm going to come back to this in the next vlog. There I will like reference about how the music has evolved in the time and what has changed to the music and why. So, and then I'm going to point out what are the style differences. Like here come a few, like the main innovations are the gallop pattern based bass line, a simplified and unified kick drum, more use of psychedelic noises and discontinuation of melodies as questioned answers or sparse melodies with more pauses. Yeah, like the arrangements get more sparse, you have more delay to compensate for that. The synth sounds are created to a large extent with digital synthesis forms as wavetable, frequency modulation, and phase distortion synthesis. Fewer synth lines are running in parallel and continuously. And then we've got proggy, that's like full on, but mostly lower BPM between 135 and 145. More individual bass lines and softer sounds, less psychedelic noises. Yeah. And then we have dark Psy / forest, that's for me the same. Or night Psy, however, that's like full on, but you have at least 150 BPM and maximum 170 BPM, but with no more melodies and strong and song structures, like particular arrangements that you don't have anymore with full on. It's only like full with dark Psy forest. You've got only one beat, some breaks in between, and only here and there, and that's it. It just continues 7 minutes, and you get like bombarded with psychedelic noises. And also you use a lot of these modern synthesis forms, wavetable, frequency modulation, and phase distortion. Where one must say these technologies have already been invented in the 90s, but there was no broad use in the Goa Trance music, because I think it wasn't so easy to do that. Nowadays you have like a software synths where it's very easy and easily at hand to use these synthesis styles, but I think in truth they got only now discovered more into depth in this kind of music. I don't know why, but it's the case. And also we have got high tech, which is a mixture of full on and dark Psy forest, but with BPM pitched to at least 170. So it gets faster, so you've got a lot of noise, but also here and there you've got some melodies. Yeah, that's about it, how I see it. I hope you agree. And this is the end of all. That's the classification scheme of Goa Psytrance as I wanted to propose it. You have got a root style that's called Goa or Psytrance, however you want to call it, and this branches into proggy, classic Goa, full on dark forest and dark Psy, high tech, and yeah, when you see the green dot, this is where I perceive myself on the way from classic Goa to full on. And I also named some artists in these categories that I perceive to be part of them, like proggy, Captain Oak, Freedom Fighters, Amok, and classic Goa. It's clearly Astral Projection, Ethnica, Total Eclipse, Mindsphere, etc. These are only examples which came into my mind. It doesn't really say, like, it's no specific order, you know. And full on West Galaxy, Outsiders, Volcano Masks, and Starlab. And like for Forest Dark Psy, I really don't know any artists. I only wrote down like Giuseppe Pavatti's playing such music, and also Sangoma Records, they release such music, which I'm not so deep into, so just examples that came to my mind. And high tech, it's like the DJs, Atsira and Psynomina, but these are just the only ones I know from this side of the universe, because I'm not so much into this music. And I think what I would refer to generally as Psytrance is like a part of full on, where you don't have no more melodies, and like Forest, Dark Psy and High Tech. This is just simply because I think well, it's commonly labeled as Psytrance, I think, because there's more psychedelic noises going on than melodies. So on the right you have the noisy side, and on the left you have the melodic side on this scheme. Yeah, that's about it. These are my thoughts about classifying Goa Trance music. So yeah, I would be interested in your opinion. So yeah, leave me a comment below what your thoughts are on this, and if you have got some suggestions to improve this scheme, or if you agree or if you disagree or whatever. I would be really interested to know your thoughts. of course, for me, it's like really creating a lot of headache. So having Goa and Psy Trance, I think distinct categories. I think they are misnominers, mismonikers, because when somebody says I make Goa Trance, then he says I'm making like classic Goa Trance music, which is unchanged from 90s. And when somebody says I make Psy Trance, he basically says I'm making full on, which is the continuation of the classic Goa track music. That's what I think. So, yeah, in truth, it's not Psy Trance or Goa Trance. It's just full on and classic Goa, which I should say because these monikers of those categories more precisely describe what's going on. You could also say like classic Goa and modern Goa, and gives a more concise description of what's really contained in the music from my point of view, and you don't have any contradictions between the monikers and the definitions and the music styles as you can see them or hear them. So yeah, let me know what you think about this. I'm done, and thank you for your attention. Bye bye.